Good morning. This is MS. You have hope. Today we'll be doing osteoporosis, not a disease that men commonly have, but we do have it. And being on the Coimbra protocol, especially because we do take vitamin D, we need to monitor that a little closer if we have problems in that area. So this morning, our guest is Dr. Sanja Tamburic. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning, John.
And so we're going to delve into that a little bit and see what we can do to stop the osteoporosis. From my understanding is osteoporosis is a lifelong thing and not something that can be cured, but can be treated. Is that a correct assessment?
That's correct. There's no quick fix for osteoporosis. It's a long-term process that involves a lot of lifestyle modifications in general, especially for patients that are on high-dose vitamin D. There's an extra care that they need to make and changes in order to prevent further bone loss if they already have some, and if they've started protocol when they were osteopenic or osteoporotic to begin with. I also want to say one thing, that having osteoporosis or osteopenia doesn't exclude you from doing the protocol. I think that's an important.
Before you go any further, I forgot to read the disclaimer.
Sure.
Let me read a disclaimer here. This interview is from our own personal experiences treating and doing the Coimbra protocol. I'm not a medical doctor. Therefore, I'm not giving medical advice. Neither is Dr. Sanja. The ways and means of treating chronic autoimmune diseases varies per individual. For this reason, we strongly recommend seeking the guidance of a trained medical professional. These are only our experiences doing the Coimbra protocol and meant for entertainment purposes only. Thank you, Dr. Sanja, for letting me read that. Go ahead with your explanation.
So my last point was on osteoporosis exclusion as a symptom for starting the protocol. The disease, MS, multiple sclerosis, is much more serious disease that needs to be taken care of first, and osteoporosis is comorbidity that needs to be treated.
Can I interrupt you there 1 second? I want people that are watching this to understand what she just said. MS is worse than osteoporosis. Now, I said to her a long time ago, let's see, I can have MS or I can have brittle bones. Tell you what, give me the brittle bones, because MS people, I know, I've lived through it. It's a nasty, nasty disease if it progresses. You don't want it to progress. So learn how to navigate your way through the protocol, stop your MS, then focus on your osteoporosis. Go ahead, doctor.
Correct. Very well said. Very, very important point, because patients that want to start the protocol often have this question, and I think this will make it really clear. Some patients come into the protocol with the pre-existing condition of osteopenia, some people even with osteoporosis, and we have to be extra careful with those patients, obviously, but there is definitely a way around it. On the other hand, some patients that are on the protocol for a long time develop osteopenia or go into osteoporosis for different reasons. Some could be that their osteoclastic activity is increased. Osteoclastic means that vitamin D, which has double action of rebuilding the bone as well as degrading the bone. So if the gradation of the bone is faster than building of the bone, for different reasons, then we're more prone to developing osteoporosis and osteopenia during the protocol. However, as we know, there are some requirements on the protocol for the patients, and that is exercise. So after the first follow-up with your protocol doctor, once your fatigue has increased, then you're required to do at least half an hour of cardio activity. Now, I understand that some patients, especially the primary progressive, secondary progressive MS, have difficulty walking, and some are immobile to begin with. So it is really important to try and stick with the proper diet, and try to use some other modalities to stimulate the bone. Some people use vibration plates. Some people use these myocycles, like John and I have discussed earlier, and John can talk about that cycle, to even though it is not weight bearing per se with the myocycle, it will still stimulate the muscle, so the muscle will grow, and therefore will stimulate bone turnover. So that's really important. Other things that people can do is really keep their diet clean and alkaline to slow down the bone loss. Okay, so eating more vegetables, doing fasting, which we'll talk about in our next interview, will also help keep the body alkaline, and also will induce autophagy, which means that all the old non-functioning cells will die, and the body will start building hopefully newer cells, and change the signaling to the DNA, which is the most important thing. Aside from the diet, water intake, and also removal of the toxins. We now are exposed to way too many toxins from food, with the use of insecticides, pesticides, glyphosates, that are all highly toxic to our body and especially our bones. They also bind to the albumin in our blood, creating these chemical antibody compounds that are toxic to our body and basically worsen our autoimmune diseases, and therefore induce neurodegeneration. So reducing our exposure to these toxins is also crucial. It not only makes our body acidic, but it leaches the minerals out of our bones, and we really can't afford that when we have patients on high-dose vitamin D. So we have to reduce that exposure. How we do that, we try to buy organic produce and grains, especially because they're laden with toxins, especially arsenic. If you can't afford to buy organic, then you have to wash your produce really well in a little bit of vinegar and baking soda. Soak it for 10 minutes, rinse it, and then consume. Your diet should consist of a lot of vegetables and a good source of protein and good fats. We have found that this type of diet reduces the inflammation in the body, and it has the least amount of toxins. In terms of protein and meat consumption, I need to say that it is important what you buy. Your meat, when you eat it, try to buy free range if you can't buy organic, or if you know the local farmer or local butcher and you know where the meat comes from, because eating non-organic or free range meat increases your risk of losing your bone mass. They've done the study where they, for example, with chicken, they've burned to ash organic and free-range chicken and non-organic chicken, which, by the way, contains a lot of arsenic because they give them antibiotics, etc. So when they burnt it to ash and they tested the pH of each, they found that the organic and free-range chicken was alkaline, whereas non-organic chicken was more acidic. So obviously, if you consume more of that kind of food, it will leach out the minerals out of your bones. So that's a really, really important point. Vegetables, like I said, if they're not organic, you can wash them and try to remove that way the pesticides. But with the protein is really important to eat free-range. Dairy products are out of question anyway to begin with, and I want to emphasize more that the importance of vegetables not only for the alkalinity of the body and prevention of bone loss, but also vegetables contain a lot of folate and calcium, but not in the amounts that you should be avoiding it on the protocol. And that's another thing I want to discuss. There's been lots of confusion about eating vegetables on the protocol. So all the leafy green vegetables, they do have oxalates, and this is the worry. But when they're slightly steamed, stir-fried, or cooked, the oxalates are deactivated and therefore do not pose any risk of having oxalates bind to the calcium that's found in the body, especially in the kidney, and therefore creating calcium oxalate stones, which is the biggest fear for all the patients on the protocol.
I think you touch on something there that people need to realize. The Coimbra protocol is a vitamin D, magnesium supplement protocol. It is not a diet per se protocol. There are foods we avoid. There are foods we know we should, like she's saying, that we should have in our bodies. But our treatment for MS is through the protocol, and the protocol is not based upon what you eat. Go ahead, doctor.
Exactly. Thank you, John, for the clarification. So, but patients ask these questions all the time. So for your protocol, for the vitamin D to work better, you have to look at all the other aspects, right? If you bombard your body constantly with the toxin, the body has to work much harder, and then it needs more vitamin D in order to quench the inflammation and neurodegeneration. So, and therefore also all of this that we are mentioning will help prevent further bone loss, and therefore allow you to stay on the protocol for as long as you need to, or for some people for the lifetime. So diet is very important. So I think I've emphasized that enough with keeping your body alkaline, right? So aside from exercise, water intake, and the diet, we're talking about toxins. Most of the people I find get sick because they're high in toxins, heavy metals or PCBs or other environmental toxins. And in the modern world, we're exposed to way too many because of the use of chemicals to grow our food. So patients oftentimes that come into the protocol with the problem of osteopenia and osteoporosis are laden with heavy metals. And how do I know that? Because I test patients for heavy metal load. And oftentimes, if I see a patient coming in with osteoporosis already or osteopenia without starting high-dose vitamin D, then I suspect that they have heavy metal toxicity, especially from lead. So I know it's not possible for everybody to start with the detox, but at least to have an awareness and avoid further exposure to it. Most of the people born earlier before 1990s, they have been exposed to lead through leaded gasoline, lead paints, etc. arsenic from the food, and painted decks, and the paint contains lead and arsenic. So just be aware of that, especially if you're walking barefoot on your decks. Not that I'm discouraging you from walking barefoot, quite contrary. I think for all patients, it is mandatory to go outside barefoot and put their feet, if they're mobile, walk on the ground barefoot, and if not,
Don't
then
they call that grounding?
grounding or earthing. There's a great documentary on earthing. I think everybody should watch that. And as you know, I also recommend to a majority of patients to do cold water bathing as much as possible, even for patients that cannot walk. If they could put their feet into really cold water, if they can end their showers with cold water, that will stimulate the whole body, increase the basal temperature, therefore increase all of the enzymes in the body that are really important for all the reactions, because that's one of the problems with MS, that all the enzymatic reactions are really slow because either they're lacking the nutrients or the body's just overwhelmed with the toxins. So having cold showers will also reduce the toxic load. It will increase the basal body temperature. So we will also release some of the toxins through sweat, right? If you can,
I want to interrupt you a second there. We're going to talk about fasting today.
Mhm.
Fasting's a good way to get rid of some of those toxins
Yes,
too.
excellent. Yes, we'll
Anyway,
mention that.
Dr. Sanja, we're running out of time.
Okay. So also, can I just say one thing also?
Sure.
There are some remedies that people can take to rebuild the bone. And I just want to mention the importance of moderate protein as opposed to a high carb diet, because we know our bones are built of collagen and minerals, of calcium and phosphates. And also importance of, in some cases, supplementing with boron and strontium for those that are suffering from osteoporosis. And as the other doctors from Brazil, they're using green propolis as well to stimulate the bone turnover. And of course, we also have markers that we can look at in the blood to actually see where we are at in terms of osteopenia and osteoporosis, not just from the DEXA scan, even though that is the best marker of osteopenia and osteoporosis.
Thank you. As always, if you have further questions, enter them on the Facebook group, Coimbraprotocol North America. Contact Dr. Sanja's office for an appointment. She's in Vancouver, British Columbia. Or you can send me a message and hopefully I'll answer you. If I like you, I will. Anyway, Dr. Sanja, thank you again. Look forward to doing something else on further down the road here. I hope to do another interview soon with you about fasting and the importance of fasting. I do it daily and I love it. It gets easier and easier. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Sanja, take care.
Thank you, John.